Alright guys, welcome back to another Patreon request, and this one comes from John McKinney, who asked me to do a Patreon request talking about what would it be like if Spider-Man was Metropolis's hero. But before we go any further, before we go any further, I'd like to mention, if you guys like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon where you guys can start sending me requests for videos to do here on YouTube. But other than that, I hope you all enjoy this, and let's get started. So, this is kind of spins out of my an idea I had just one morning of, hey, what would it be like if Spider-Man was Gotham's hero? And that's kind of where we are with this, is that what would it be like if Spider-Man protected Metropolis? So let's throw this kind of scenario out there into the wind, is that we don't have Superman never arrived, and what would it be like if if Peter Parker was the hero of Metropolis? Now, obviously, there's kind of some power differentials between Spider-Man and Superman. Obviously, Superman is fucking Superman, and Spider-Man, while he is powerful, he's not exactly on the same level. But he doesn't have any of Superman's weaknesses either. So the big thing, let's talk about Spider-Man's effect on what would it be like, his effect on Metropolis? What would it be like if he was the hero of Metropolis? So I think Spider-Man, how it would be kind of seen is that people would be a little more... it'd be kind of like his time in New York, but not to the level where people think, oh, he's a menace. It would be more like people wouldn't exactly know what to think of him because he's wearing a mask and he's just kind of crawling on walls and shooting webs everywhere, and he's just but he's wearing this bright clothing and cracking jokes and hanging out with people, saving people. Metropolis is a lot more forward thinking than we give it credit for. So I think there would be some people who would think oh, he's a menace or whatever, but I think the vast majority would be hey, Spider-Man, he's pretty cool. I like Spidey. Go web up the bad guys. So that would be kind of fun. I think one of the problems he would Peter would encounter, it wouldn't be so much villains, but though we'll get to them in a bit. One of the major hurdles he would have to overcome is, well, the Daily Planet. I don't think Perry White would be I don't think he would be like Jameson, but I do think Lois Lane would definitely put poor Spider-Man through the ringer. So let's say Spider-Man worked at the Daily Planet as another photographer, although I do think him and Jimmy would either be best friends or rivals for working with Lois. There's no in between. So honestly, I do think while Perry would be this Spider-Man guy, he's all right, he seems like a decent enough guy, but I think Lois would throw out pieces like Spider-Man hero or something else, since it wouldn't be Superman, where she would Superman would go and talk to her. Peter has never been like that. Peter's been more gotta go. So I think Lois would kind of throw out these questions and be the one to ask is can we trust Spider-Man? And also it would make it would make a lot of people her columns on Spider-Man would be a lot, not so much hero or menace. It would be more can we trust a guy who wears a mask and crawls on buildings and calls himself Spider-Man, the thing that is a major phobia for people. And I think also Lex Luthor would run with that. That's another thing, is that Luthor would totally run with that on a grander scale. Now, also the police force. I do think Dan Turpin, who did have a problem with Superman, I think he would also have a bit of a problem more so with Spider-Man, because he'd be you wall crawling freak, will you get out of this police business? I think he would be I don't like this spider freak, but if he's keeping the other weirdos down, that's fine by me. Now the other thing is that now here's another major shift in the city. Now, as you guys know, Metropolis has usually been very crime-free because most criminals look at Metropolis and go, oh, that's the place where Superman lives. Well, I don't have superpowers, and all I have are guns, so I'm just going to go to Gotham City. Now, Spider-Man, if Spider-Man's your only protector in Metropolis, that's a different story. Spider-Man's not bulletproof. Spider-Man worked in a city where he had other superheroes going around. And Superman, while there are other superheroes, like maybe I could still see Guardian here, Spider-Man wouldn't probably instill, John Henry Irons to call himself Spider Steel or something. Or maybe in this continuity, actually I'd take that back, maybe if in this continuity, if Spider-Man saved John Henry Irons, he would make himself into this version of the Steel Spider. You guys remember that suit? Sorry, had to get some water. But yeah, so that's another thing you have to take into account, is that while Superman's very presence kept people at bay from, going, from committing crimes or even coming to the city, the big thing here is that Spider-Man doesn't have that same kind of effect. And you thought Intergang was bad even with Superman around. Imagine what it will be like when Intergang has no problem with Spider-Man and the tech they could get there. And I have even started on Lex Luthor. Luthor would definitely run with the business savvy. Now, I don't think he would be to the psychotic level that Norman has, but remember, Lex Luthor quite honestly runs Metropolis. And I think he would just see Spider-Man as a bug on his windshield and just see him not like Superman, like something he has to overcome. It would be more like something like, you are nothing but an annoyance to me, but I will stomp you out like a bug, either by taking more of running more with what Lois Lane said, and telling the people in Metropolis, can we trust this Spider-Man, a man who won't even show his face to the public? That's another thing you have to look at. And also, some of Superman's villains, if we're just now, it's not like, oh, all of Spider-Man's villains came to Metropolis. It's like, what if, Metropolis's villains came out of the woodwork and there was no Superman and instead Spider-Man? That's a different thing. It isn't like with Gotham where I said, Spider-Man could probably hold his own against a majority of, Batman's foes. Here, these guys are on another level entirely. These are guys, I could see a Spider-Man holding his own against someone like Livewire, Parasite, Metallo. But there are some, there are some of Superman's villains who are obviously on another level. Really, how do you think Spider-Man is going to hold his own against in a one-on-one fight with Brainiac? And don't say, oh, he beat Firelord that one time. One time. That was one time. So, do you think he's going to hold his own against Brainiac and also Brainiac's army? Be serious. And there are other, Darkseid. How do you think Spider-Man can hold his own against Darkseid and the forces of Apocalypse? Yeah, that's not happening either. Like I said, there's a lot of Spider-Man, Superman villain, and also, how do you think Spider-Man could could deal with Mr. Mxyzptlk? Do you think he could handle his own against Mxyzptlk? Yeah. That's it's just that Spider-Man, if he was in Metropolis, I think more criminals would be coming into the city, and also there would probably be villains that he just could not handle. There would just be some villains out there that he could just not take on his own. It would be kind of like, hey, I gotta call the Justice League again. Hey, Diana. Yeah, it's Peter. Yeah, it's Darkseid again. Cool, thanks. I am so I am feeling really low right now. So that's just how I see it. So yeah. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you think it would be like if Spider-Man was the hero of Metropolis? Do you guys think he could hold his own, or do you think it would just all fall to shit, or do you think it would be somewhere in between? just comment below, let me know. And once again, I'd like to thank John McKinney for this Patreon request, as well as continued patronage. And yeah, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon. You guys can send me requests for videos to do here on YouTube. But other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.